Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast. It's the Saturday show, Xfinity Series, COTA picks. We'll look at the player pool, who we are targeting. We'll look at some of the projections. Back end, we will mess around with building some lineups. As I check my notes, one of the things that I want to remind myself is what's the build that we are looking at? We're looking at one hog. We will chase place differential. We're going to try to get as many drivers as we can into the top 10. Definitely need 4 drivers that are going to finish top 10. Maybe that 5th driver in our lineup is a top 15. And then obviously we're going to have a punt value play that may not maximize finishing position, but that guy's going to give us some flexibility, some affordability, and help us build a better lineup. So we want one hog and we want one super value. And then with our other 4 picks, we really want to get top 10s. We may only be able to get 3 top 10s out of those 4 and then settle for a 15th that gets us some place differential and gives us a little bit of salary flexibility. Let's just run through our top. The drivers that we expected to be fast are fast. The salaries pretty much line up with the drivers' practice speeds. The salaries line up where we expect them to finish. No real surprises in practice. No real surprises in terms of the starting grid. I mean, there were some that have changed our perspective a little bit, but the way that we were talking in research earlier this week, it's all pretty much held up. So again, we got one hog, and it is the hogs that we expect. Larson, Van Gisbergen, Gibbs, Allmendinger. You're going to want to pick one of these guys. They're going to be the hog. I do not believe that we can build a highly efficient or productive lineup that puts 4 expensive or 2 of these drivers in it. Just no way of doing it. And it's up to you which guy you want to go with, Larson, SVG, Gibbs, or Allmendinger. Let's say that Larson gets 10 hog points. I don't expect him to lead every lap of this race. There will be cycling that goes on, and we could see SVG, Gibbs, or Allmendinger get their spot, or just, whoever. There's going to be one at the top, and the other 2 could get a top finish and get hog points or dominator points or fast lap / lap sled points and have a good day, but they're just not going to fit. We're going to get one of these drivers. That's where I stand, and that's where I stood earlier this week. I'm going to stay with that. And then from there, what we were considering earlier this week was, okay, so we've got our one guy. Now we need 3 more that are going to get a top 10 for sure. And that was the yellow drivers because we wanted guys that were affordable, and the salary is pretty soft-ish this week. And so you can see the yellow guys that we were circling around. So we got our hog, and then where do we go from there? We want to maximize finishing position. They can all get top 10s. Our next step is then, can we get some place differential too? And we can. And so we'll just start from that situation. Again, so we have pretty much covered here the guys that we think are going to be our hogs. And you can see with the practice laps, they're all pretty much the same. And you're going to have to go with your own feel of SVG, AJ, Ty, or Kyle Larson, where you want to go. Clearly, Kyle Larson is going to have the starting position that's going to be very beneficial to him. And, build a bunch of lineups. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the one guy. Obviously, I'm going to lean towards Larson as the guy, but by no means does that mean I'm going to disregard any of those other drivers. From there, we're then targeting the top 10s. Smith just not going to get us the place differential that we need, so I think we can knock him out. If you don't want to completely remove him, that's fine, but if we're doing our rankings and our player pool, and here you go, you can see a slice of the player pool, and we're not seeing in the top here anything for Chandler Smith. We got to go down point per dollar wise for Smith, and he's going to be much lower. Can he score a bunch of fantasy points? Yes, he can, but it's just not, really not checking out as a very good point per dollar play at 19th. Not very much upside. He definitely could slide down. Having a really good race or practice so far with JGR and qualifying, but just the place differential isn't there. End of story. Karam's not going to be in play. And I'm knocking Creed and Custer down in my values. Can they get to the top 5? Yeah, they can. But so can these other drivers in the yellow. And they have the opportunity to score place differential, whereas Creed and Custer are slightly limited. Although, 2 to 3 place differential, that's not going to get it cut. What we were looking at previous lineups for COTA, the optimal lineup was getting drivers with, those top 10 finishes and place differential from 7 to 17 points, 5 to 24 place differential points. I can take 5. But again, it's going to be a stretch. I don't think Custer can get us 5-place differential points. I don't believe Sheldon Creed's going to get you 5-place differential points. Whereas Austin Hill, he can get close to the top 5. He can get 5-place differential points. I got him here finishing 6th. That's not much of a stretch. I like the play, but he is not the best play, but he's definitely going to be elevated above Custard, Creed, and Smith, the guys that we were targeting earlier in the week. We're trying to fill out spots 2, 3, and 4 in our lineup. Boy, it would be great to get a 5th guy in from this yellow, and maybe we can make that work. We'll play around with our builds here in a second, but we for sure are going to take a hog, and then in this yellow are going to be our 2nd pick, our 3rd pick, and our 4th pick. We're trying to maximize finishing position and also get as much place differential. So Hill definitely is a better play than Creed, Custard, and Chandler. Kligerman, I think we're going to have a little bit less upside. I wouldn't completely eliminate him, but at 8,700, he's not providing that much. It's just, I don't think we need to talk too much about that. Same thing with Sammy Smith. We get a little bit more savings, but Hill's a better driver, a better car, much more upside. I've got Hill projected more towards 6th and Smith towards 9th, and you can see their point per dollar rankings. Although the point per dollar ranking for Hill is not that great, so maybe I don't need to go there, but I am getting 43 fantasy points out of him. Mayer is just going to be an overpay for a top 5. Like what he's doing. Everything is great, and his qualifying position is not that terrible, but we were leaning more towards him being a hog/dominator, and he's not going to be a hog dominator in this field. Could he get to the top 5? Yeah, he can, but I think you're going to overspend, and the salary constraints that you create by spending this much. Both of these drivers can get 5th or 6th. He's going to take $1,000 away, and it's going to make it really tight when you're trying to make that 5th pick, I think is what it all comes down to. I'm looking mainly towards that 6th pick being a super cheap bargain guy and maybe not even being that efficient. We'll talk about that in a second when we get there to our punt value play, because we are going to take a punt value play. But it comes down to that 5th pick, and when you spend a little bit more for Mayer, it's going to squeeze that, and it may make it harder for us to get a top 15 or a top 10. Probably not going to be possible to get a top 10 guy if you're going to spend up on Mayer, so that's not in my playing. Love is available. He is in play. ARCA experience at road courses. Let's look quickly at Love's laps. Good. They check out. Is he a top 5 driver? It's going to be, that would be a push. Is he a top 10 driver? It looks pretty good. He's got some fierce competition, but he is giving you some savings, and he's giving you some place differential. If we get him to 8th, there it is, 6th. That's enough place differential. That's the finishing position checkbox that we need. And at 8,200, that is a very solid point per dollar play. Now, normal slates at an intermediate track, a 5X may not seem like a lot, but we have to remember this is a road course race with not a lot of points available. And so don't worry about that too much. It is a good play. Allgaier is going to give you probably a little bit more upside and security than Jesse Love, and we really shouldn't be comparing the two. We probably should compare Allgaier and Hill. I think I will go with Allgaier over Hill and not really even be that worried as long as I can afford him. But if I don't have enough for Allgaier and I got to slide down to Hill, that's okay. But right now, Allgaier and Hill are checking out way above these guys simply because they have just as much finishing position potential as Custard and Creed, but they simply have the opportunity to get you place differential, right? I'm not really giving you things that are profound at the moment. We'll talk about these other plays in a second, but let's go back again to the guys that we liked earlier in the week in the yellow. We're trying to slide out 2, 3, and 5. Nemechek at 8,800 was way too cheap, had the battery issue in practice, and all that compounded him to him not getting a really good qualifying position. I am not worried whatsoever that he can get into the top 10. He's clearly, even right now, I got him at number 1 best point per dollar play. Even if you take him down to 10th, he's still getting us 10 place differential points. He's getting the top 10, checking the boxes, not that expensive. Let's split the difference. Still a top play. So those are the yellow guys that we're targeting, 2, 3, and 5. If you want to break out of those guys, that is fine because there are some options that we can consider right here. And we've got Brandon Jones at 7,600. I'm not really that excited, but he still is a halfway decent play. through attrition, if he doesn't make mistakes, other people make mistakes, he only has to get to 12th. He gives you a little bit of savings over Herbst. I think Herbst can do a little bit better, getting to 10th based on what he's done track history-wise. Stuart Hodgson, he's checking out as a really good point per dollar play. And what we're going to want to see is how do the builds work? And by putting Herbst in, maybe you only take 2 of these yellow guys and then Herbst, and we'll see what happens when we mess around with that kind of a lineup. Or maybe we can build a lineup where we can get Allgaier, Nemechek, and Herbst. Or maybe we slot down the Jones. So just running through the grid, I'm kind of surprised by what we got out of Ed Jones, and he's checking out as a pretty decent point per dollar play. 14th projection is not something that I was expecting to do earlier this week, but his practice times are all right. We can believe in a Sam Hunt car. Sam Hunt cars in the intermediate track are 20th placed. You move to a road course, you throw in the attrition, the things that could happen, and all the different things that play out, especially at turn 1 at COTA. It's not crazy to think that, if he was able to qualify 16th, even if there's not any craziness, he could still, obviously, Nemechek, Herbst, but you look back here in the field, if this speed is real, he can hold those drivers off. And as long as his car doesn't mess up, he's still going to be a possibility as one of those value plays that we go to, a 6th guy in, or maybe a 5th guy in if we spend in different ways. But he's definitely in the pool. I'm not really as crazy about Retz. I should. Not quite as much speed. I like Retzlaff a lot earlier this week, but again, I don't have much of a different projection here. He's spending a little more. I wouldn't completely eliminate him. We do like the Jordan Anderson cars, but I guess I'm a little less excited about him if I'm just following my constructions. He's not necessarily like the super punt value play. He's not the 6th guy in. Maybe I can build a lineup where he's the 6th guy in, but he doesn't give me the extreme savings that I can get from the other guys. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to need extreme savings if I'm spending up here and I'm dancing around in the 8,000 to 9,000. Again, we'll approach that when we get there, but just in what we expected, though, we expected Parker Retzlaff to be a good pick this week. He has pretty good road course races in the past, and although he didn't run super fast lap times in practice, when it came down to qualifying, he was able to do what we needed to do. He did put down one decent lap and was able to do that in practice or in qualifying, so not off the board. You would like to get a little bit more place differential out of him. Where Burton's checking out is okay. A lot of these guys are just okay. And then one of the things that we have to talk about with this road course racing is that with any of these drivers, if you want to bake in 5 place differential points just based on attrition and the way that they play out, so he could get to 15th. I got him at 17th, but you could book that up a little bit more. I'm not really pushing myself to play Burton. I'm not really pushing myself to play a Bobby Dotter car. When I'm getting into this range, if I'm baking in 5 place differential, I'm baking that in for everyone. I'm baking that into a $4,500 driver. And although that $4,500 driver may not be the best point per dollar play, it may not hit 5X, but just the salary flexibility that guy gives me, that I'm fine throwing him in as my 6th pick, taking the points that I can, and then hoping the other guys really carry the day with finishing position and with place differential. And simply, these drivers aren't really giving me all of that. Clements, as we start to go a little bit further back, it's like, all right, maybe, although the practice speeds were not that good. But then again, when it came time to qualify, he was able to lay down a decent lap. So could he race up ahead of Balicki? Yes. Could he pass Kvyat? I'm never going to get that right. And the Doddiker, yes. Could he get ahead of Burton? It's getting dicey. Now from there, you're kind of hitting a ceiling. So around 20th, 21st, you bake in a couple place differential points. 18th is not a stretch. 17th is not too much of a stretch. So that means he's in play. Austin Green, a guy that I wasn't really excited about because he just doesn't have any experience. He does have road course experience outside of stock car racing. It is a Jordan Anderson car. And now we're getting some real good savings. And could he dice it up with these guys, get around the 27th, 22nd, give me a couple place differential points? I've got him going to 20th. that doesn't seem like that crazy of a day. It is, considering his lack of experience, but at 5,600, it's worth him being the sixth guy in. Although, again, I still am leaning towards going even cheaper for my sixth guy in. LeBay at 6,500. If I like Clemens here, he is definitely someone we're going to build around. He's in the pool. Sieg's given some more savings, but Sieg's better performances have been against softer fields. Much rather take LeBay. I know we worry about the Gase car, but the Gase car has actually been halfway decent at the road courses. I think Brad Perez had a decent race in a Gase car last season, and he was able to. I wish LeBay would have laid down more laps, but the laps that he did lay down were good. Could this car be capable of a 20th, though in some place differential? I think 18 is not that crazy. I got him at 20. If he is able to get to 18, maybe he works. It's going to come down to just building. That's not crazy from LeBay. We'll leave it at 20 for now. He is on the pool. It's just going to be construction. Ty Dillon, I just can't trust the truck or the car. Truck series driver car. Tommy Joe Martins, Brennan Poole. Pool was optimal at COTA last season, 5,100. Now we're getting some real savings. I would have no problem putting him as the sixth car in. Yeah, the practice times were not very good, but when he did have to qualify, his qualifying time was a little bit better than 38th at least. Again, could he dice it up with these guys? Yeah, but we really just need attrition. Could he get up to 24th, 23rd? Yeah, he can. Just by completing the race, not making mistakes. Someone gets off track, someone gets a course-cutting penalty, we get turn one mayhem. 23rd is really not out of the equation. Maybe not the best. I could probably get a little more savings. Anthony Alfredo, hopefully got this car dialed in. We have seen Blaine Perkins, who is not the greatest road course racer, I'd say. He's average above average. I like Perkins a little bit, but get good results in the hour cars. The hour cars are at the top of the mid-pack, not the best of the mid-pack, but we know that this can be around the 20th place car. We know that Alfredo can be around 20th place driver. It's just the price is probably just not going to work out for us. Brad Perez, liked him earlier in the week. It's just the savings. Again, it is going to be hard for him to pass some of these other cars. It is a Tommy Joe Martins car. It's probably around this 28 range. If we can bake in 3 or 4 place differential, could we imagine Perez getting to 25th? He does have a top 20 at a road course. I mean, last year, 19th, 20th, 23rd. Could he get to 25th based on just the way it plays out, him having a little bit better of a race? He is in a Tommy Joe Martins car, which isn't a complete, or he is in a Martins car, which isn't a complete slug. Could he get to 25th? Yeah. That's not much in a race that could get hairy. Getting us 6th place differential, checking out as a really good value play. And even if he isn't a great point per dollar play, even if he doesn't get there, the savings that he gives us could be huge. Let's mess with the builds in a second. Weatherman, Gosselin, done it in the past. You probably feel a little bit more comfortable. I can see him finishing ahead of Perez. I don't know about Alfredo. Probably Poole. I can see him get ahead of Dillon. Maybe even see he can run around 28th, 26th. Get some place differential. I mean, you look at what the Weatherman has done in the past, 22, 14, 20, 22. Putting him in at 23rd is pretty conservative, and he's coming as a good point per dollar play. Also, it's just going to be, if I spend up a little bit more, and I expect him to outrace Perez, that's $900. What's that going to do to the rest of my lineup? I'm probably not going to go on Gallagher. Honeyman's a no experience. Not excited about Deegan. Perkins, again, is the same as the Brad Perez play, but he's giving us a lot more opportunity here. This is a downgrade in equipment to Sieg from where he was last year with our motorsports. And sure, that is not very fun, and the practice speeds were not good. I believe he did have one good lap. No, he didn't even have one good lap. So that is a concern, but he is starting 36th. Could he outrace Deegan? Yeah, I think he could. Honeyman? Yeah. Gallagher? Yeah. And that's probably where the wall is, 33. So Maybe he gets 3 or 4 place differential through attrition and just completing the race. Could he get to 27th? Yeah, he could. That's probably not the craziest thing in the world. Ends up as a pretty good point per dollar play. If we're going to consider Perez, then we do need to consider Blaine Perkins, as much as you might not like that. Does have that tool win in the past, but in better equipment, it's got 3 top 20s last year, guys. So he clearly knows how to get around a road course. And the rest of these guys at the bottom, I'm not really going to concern myself with too much. So let's start messing around and building some lineups. Double check, the starting grid is right this time. I really, I shouldn't laugh. I apologize. I feel really crappy about importing the wrong starting lineup. It wasn't the wrong one. I just imported it, and the guy that made it rushed it and got a couple things incorrect. So still feel terrible about that. I really do. Anyway, starting grid's right. Let's look at making some lineups, and let's just start with the guys that we want to go with first. So the top of our list when we are building is going to be Larson. And then in our player pool, it's going to be Nemechek. The projections are saying play Riley Herbst. So let's just stick with the projections for now. And the projection is saying best point per dollar play, Blaine Perkins. So now I've got 2 picks. I got to get a top 10 out of this one. I want to maximize place differential, and then we'll see what's going to look like in this 15 spot. I've got my hog. I've got the best place differential, top 10 finisher. This one might be a little bit of a push. We can explore that as we mess around and fiddle with the lineup. But our 4th guy getting a top 10. So Weatherman, these guys are checking as best point per dollar. But if we want to maximize points, then I think Mayer's going to be an overspin. So I don't want to go there. I think these guys are all Allmendinger, Gibbs are going to be overspins. So then we're looking at Austin Hill or Allgaier. We'll spin with the highest option first. And the maximized place differential, that leaves us with 8,100 for a 5th guy. Can we get a top 10 out of 8,100? We've already got Riley Herbst. Maybe you consider going, so 81. Where do we got to go down to? You know who we're going to end up on. You know it is. It's Brandon Jones. Do I really want to go there? I absolutely don't. So can I go a little bit cheaper to open this up? Well, the first thing would be to go to Brad Perez, who at 4,500 will let you get to, well, there it is. I didn't think for a second we were going to be able to get there, but yeah, we did. So if we go with Perez, that small $100 means everything, because I got $8,200, and I'm not going to put the full lineup on the screen. We know the rules of the game, but that's pretty good. Obviously, I mean, maybe Herbst is a stretch at top 10, but you can make a strong argument that he's going to be top 12-ish. I mean, if we can get all 5 in the top 12, which I think you can do if you throw him in there, that seems like a pretty popular build. I think a lot of people are going to go to that, and you can swap out Larson, get savings, and go in a different route. But let's just stay with the Larson build for now. And maybe we are not secure in playing. We are secure. I think we are pretty comfortable with Justin Allgaier, but we're going to take out Riley Herbst. And maybe you want to go a little bit more with the savings in Brandon Jones. And if we do that, we still got Perez in here. We can go all the way up to 8,600. And does that really change anything for us in terms of some of our better plays? 8,600. We can still get the love, obviously. Chandler Smith's not a guy that I'm really considering. I don't think Sammy Smith is much of an upgrade for this lineup. And so now it's like, that doesn't really change anything for us too much. So let's take out Allgaier, and let's take a little bit of savings and go with Austin Hill. Now we can get all the way up to 9,100, and that opens the door to still, obviously, Jesse Love is there. You can't get to Creed, don't really want to get to Creed. Don't want Chandler Smith. Doesn't really change anything for us in terms of that build, but we can get away from that play and Where would we like to go? Can I get Austin Hill? Let's mess around with the Austin Hill and Justin Allgaier then. Kind of messing around, but again, you can see the pool and the guys that we are targeting. I mean, if you really want to jam in two 10K guys, I guess you can go there. That would probably be a Sam Mayer lineup, or maybe you're just trying to cover your bases, but I don't think you need to cover bases in terms of getting hogs. I think you would much rather, because the place differential is almost going to be the same that you get in calculating the fast laps and laps led. So Larson could get more, like the second hog or second dominator, I don't think is going to score as much place differential as you're going to get out of a top 10 place differential guy. Like, obviously not John Hunter Nemechek or Austin Hill or Justin Allgaier. I think they can score more points than a Ty Gibbs with the second place finish with some fast laps and laps led. So we've got Hill in. Let's throw in Allgaier. So that's 4 top 10s. That leaves me in the 72 range. And can't even get to Alfredo in that lineup. There are some value guys, but we really want to get a top 15. And I think any of these guys are a stretch to get a top 15. And that's in even taking a super cheap Brad Perez. Maybe you want to go a little bit more balanced. And then you take Ed Jones. That gives us 5,700. Who does that leave us with as point per dollar? Austin Green. It's not really that safe, kind of risky. Maybe you want to go with Poole. Worth consideration. Should we talk about Parker Retzlaff? Is that going to be a situation to go to? I mean, he can get you a top 15, but he's not going to get you any place differential. Well, how many points do I have him just raw total-wise doing? It's 28. I got other guys scoring a lot more than that, so that doesn't seem like something I want to do. Ed Jones build of, I think we're just going to keep coming back to Riley Herbst and accepting that, what does this build look like? It gives me 7,200. Again, it's kind of a bit of a no man's land. I got my top 10s-ish checked. 15th place checked. But I don't really like where that lands me. Again, going back to Brad Perez and Perkins. And I'll just keep typing the same thing. But that's just what I do when I do these shows. $8,600. 86, obviously love. What could I change around? Now, the next thing to change around would be just to go with a little bit cheaper. You take AJ Allmendinger to run away with this race. You're now up to 8,900 with Lane Perkins. And I don't think that changes anything in terms of chasing top 10s because I'm not really crazy about Creed Smith. Maybe you go with Kligerman. I really don't want to end up on Brandon Jones. See if Ty Gibbs changes the equation. Not taking out Nemechek. We might move Hill out. So there, I can get up to 9,100. Again, that's not quite enough savings to get me to Justin Allgaier. Not that I have to roster Justin Allgaier. Probably, maybe it's just going to be that Jesse Love play, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe Sammy Smith, get you a 12th place. Let's think about that for a second. Sammy Smith finishes 9th. I don't see that being something I need to go to. I know I need to go to John Hunter Nemechek. All right. I mean, let's just trust our guns. And our gut says Kyle Larson's the guy. Well, let's just get out of the super value. No, I want to get into the super value play. I think there's a lot of questions around Ed Jones. That's a little scary to me. I would rather just take the super savings. Austin Green. Yeah, I don't mind Austin Green in that spot. What does Austin Green look like if he is our punt? And that gives us 7,600. Well, guess who you can afford at 7,600? 4 top 10s, a top 15, and a value play. That's not terrible. I mean, you could even go with Anthony Alfredo in that spot, and I wouldn't really fault you. 20th place, that's not that bad either. Who else competes with Austin Green as a decent value play at that range? You're spending up a little bit more with maybe you go with Poole if you don't like Perkins or Perez. But I think if you're messing around with Poole and Perez and Perkins, there's really not much of a difference back there. It's all kind of about the same play. All right, I like Larson. I like Nemechek. I'd like Allgaier. 6,100. I just don't think I can get a top 15 out of 6,100. Where am I spending too much? If I get rid of Hill, I take Herbst. Where does that leave me? 7,100. That's not a spot I need to be in. But if I take Super Saver of the day, Bread Perez, I can get up to 8,200. There it is again. I'm just punching in the same lineup and just swap people in and out. Trying to solve the equation. I think I've covered just about everything we need to cover. Let's look. What if we do want to spend up on a second guy just to see what it looks like? It's 5,700. We've got 4 really solid top 10s, and let's take out Herb. Let's throw Herbst in here. 72. 72. Not really where we need to be. Need a little bit more savings. Well, I know a guy that can give us a little bit more savings. His name's Brandon Jones. That gets us up to 76. And at 76, we can get to Alfredo. I think you're just overspending on these top guys, and that lineup's not really going to work. But if you go with Ty Gibbs and that gets you up to 84. If you think it's going to be an SVG, I don't really love it, but that 84 will allow you to get to Herbst, it'll allow you to get to Brandon Jones, it'll allow you to get to Jesse Love. You might be overspending, though, on these top guys. But it's not terrible, right? 8,400, I can get to Love. That's a top 10, right? Top 10, I mean, that's not bad. You just need this guy to lead. You really need them to beat Larson, which could happen. Gibbs looks good, but, yeah. That'll do it. Hopefully this was helpful. You can see the player pool on here. Ran through the practice speeds. Hopefully this was helpful. And you know the value guys I'm going to. Thanks, guys.